Hello everyone, welcome to another Wandering Book Impressions on the channel. I am your host, Gabriel Garcia, otherwise known as the Wandering Quill and the Wandering Scribe. In this episode, to give you almost like a preview for next month's lineup, I will be reading a few books from some of the authors. Now, the first book we'll be reading comes from author Amr Saleh. Now, Amr Saleh and I have been discussing about an interview, and we will hopefully see him on the channel later in the year. But Amr Saleh has given a digital copy of the book to be read on the channel and for you all to listen and to enjoy. Now, the title of the book is called Treasures of Egypt, the Spear and the Sycthe. And the official synopsis of the book reads as follows. Now, again, as I said before, this is a digital copy, so if you're wondering why my eyes keep darting from this screen to slightly to my right, it's because I have two windows open. One window for the camera and one window for the book. So let us begin. What would you do for the one you love? What would one do for Egypt? Desperation drives Nefiri Minu, apprentice to the Grand Vizier, to save her little brother by seeking Khafset, a young thief from the persecuted people of Hyksos. But its price to help heal her sick brother is to steal a divine spear from Ra's temple. However, by touching the spear, Nefiri unwittingly unleashes Sycthe, the shackled god of destruction, and starts a chain of events that threatens to plunge Egypt into chaos. To avert disaster, they are forced to navigate the realm of the gods and the dead, and face off against mythological creatures. An endangered adventurer, Khafset, insists on calling the Grand Heist. Can this unlikely pair learn to trust each other? And will that trust turn their forced partnership into something else? Something more? On an adventure packed with secrets, hidden agendas, not to mention gods and monsters, will Nefiri and Khafset succeed in their mission to save Egypt, or will the very prejudices that have shaped their world threaten to tear them apart? Now, this book automatically is a big plus for me. I love Egyptian history. I love Egyptian mythology. And this is honestly my first book really exploring Egyptian mythology, the culture behind it. And I'm really excited to share this with you all. So, without further ado, let us begin Treasures of Egypt. Introduction. The world has one unchanging constant. Ramesses the Great lives while we die, and our souls pass from Huat to Duat to be guided by Anubis, judged by Ma'at, guarded by Osiris, and embraced by Isis. I've encountered many gods in my life, fought the wicked and befriended the noble. I know our deities in all their forms, and Ramesses isn't one. It's very close, though. I'm aware the chances are slim that you will read our story. It had originally been my intention to document our adventures once our king joined his ancestors in the field of reeds. But since I'll soon be reunited with my dear beloved in the afterlife, and our pharaoh is determined to outlive his subjects, I will share with you a story your generation will never find in its history books. If by a miracle one of the few copies that escapes Ramesses' grip lands in your hands, wherever you may live in this vast world we inhabit, I ask you to keep an open mind and imagine a world only a handful of living humans have ever seen, where I've traveled between the realms of the living and the dead in search of the treasures of Egypt. Title drop. Nefiri Minu, the Treasure Hunter. Chapter 1. Comrades in Crime. Egypt 1274 BC. The Egyptian sun scorched the town of Avaris, burning the sand on the path as we hurried to get my little brother's medicine. His small hand shook in my grip whenever he glanced at the hostile Hyksos who inhabited the city. Their bloodthirsty stares followed us through the lines of Egyptian soldiers guarding the main road to Set's temple. Our brave warriors tapped their spears on the ground to greet us on our way to the temple. They crossed their weapons before the unpleasant sight of the dirty Hyksos. My brother looked up at me, with eyes full of pride when the soldiers announced my arrival. Lady Nefiri Minu, Grand Vizier's apprentice, warden of Avaris, and future Grand Vizier of the Egyptian Empire. They forgot to add, poorest government official because of a stupid cap on the earnings of an apprentice. Oh, knowledge was the ultimate payment, my master said. A bright future full of wealth awaited me, explained the scribes in the royal palace. I was only 16 and should be patient, advised my aunt. Yeah, right, maybe they should walk in my too small sandals all day. We reached the temple of the god of destruction and were immediately greeted by its majesty. The bronze statue of this colossus building exuded the grandeur of the deity. Purple and black writing decorated its red walls, symbolizing the colors of the scarlet desert, Set's kingdom in the Duat, the realm of the gods and the dead. My brother and I stepped closer, following the aroma of irises that escaped the temple's entrance and mixed with the stench of nearby garbage mounds. Look, Hote, I said to my brother, trying and probably failing to sound optimistic. At least you get to visit Set's temple for the first time. Why are we here? Hote asked. I want to go home. He tugged on my white dress and tried to pull me back toward the canal. I have some work to do. That technically wasn't a lie, right? No. It most definitely wasn't. My main job was to keep my brother safe. That was precisely what I was going to do. It was precisely what I'm doing now. If I didn't get his medicine from my supplier in the temple, Hote would die. And if that happened, why in the god's holy name would I ever leave my bed again? My only predicament, my supplier was an untouchable Hyksos. Worse, he was a thief. So much for being the lady of law and tradition. But why did you take me to work this time? Hote asked. Aunt Meriti is busy today, so you're stuck with me. Also, every Egyptian must visit Set's temple at least once. You're 8. You're old enough. I don't want to visit this creepy temple. I want Aunt Meriti. The passing priest shot Hote a disgusting glance. Despite being members of the clergy and under its protection, they were still untouchable Hyksos, remnants of their fallen tyrannical ancestors, and it was quite bold of them to direct such a vile expression to an Egyptian child, especially in my presence. I have been too lenient with them lately, haven't I? Punishment was in order. I might have the Hyksos' natural place in society, but later, yes. No need to show Hote my other side. Won't leave you alone at home, I said, and it's too late to argue now, don't you think? No, Hote said, tears streaming down his reddened cheeks. I want to leave Avaris. The Hyksos are creepy and Set is a scary god. We won't be long. I don't care. I want Aunt Meriti. Hote tensed and pulled his arm away from me, desperate to avoid entering the temple. Holte's distress is understandable, but we needed his medicine, and time was short. I tugged him forward. Please, I'm not telling you to hug a crocodile. Could you just please come inside so we can? I pulled him too hard, and he stumbled, falling back on the ground with a thud. Oh, gods, I knelt and inspected him for injuries. I'm so sorry. Are you hurt? Do you feel dizzy or nauseous? I'm fine. He rubbed his eyes, grinding his bony hands against his skinny face. I swallowed the lump in my throat, unable to ignore the scratches on his knees. Gods, what a fine sister I was. My work in Avaris was making me too harsh. No, this was just a minor accident. Was it? Of course. I could still control myself. The job hasn't changed me. Had it? No. I helped Hote stand, brushed the dust off his white kilt, and gently cupped his hollow cheek in my hand. I'm sorry for being too harsh. I said, we'll buy whatever you want on our way home. Hote's dark eyes widened. Really? If my dear Hote wishes it, he shall have it. I've been saving up for some new sandals to replace the ones killing my feet. but I could wait a little longer if it would make Hote happy. Another reason to invest in my brother's medicine, other than keeping him alive, was that I needed him to grow up and get stronger. He would probably need to carry me around, since my feet would fall off at this rate before I could save enough money for the sandals. Lady Nefiri Minu, Passer Cobra, carried through Avaris by her younger brother because she was too poor to buy new footwear. God's the irony. Can you buy me an apple cake with honey and dates? Hote asked. I rolled my eyes. Though the overpriced healers had forbidden Hote sugar because of his honey urine disease, desperate times did call for desperate measures. Fine, as long as you promise to behave, and thank you! He hugged me. I love you, Nev. Oh well, what could I do? Eating apple cake once wouldn't kill him, and was better than him not getting his medicine. Is everything all right, Lady Nefiri? Commander Ahomse, deep the voice called. I looked up at the commander of the Magi, the Egyptian force I controlled, which was responsible for policing the towns of Avaris. He was a short, bald man wearing a simple white kilt and a decorative linen collar that extended over the shoulder and cascaded over his chest. He was a brave and loyal man like his namesake, warrior Pharaoh Ahmose, who had freed my people from the Hyksos tyranny. Just like Hote, Commander Ahmose was one of the few people who was still liked me after I became warden of Avaris. Ironically, he was also the one to drag me to the dungeons if my illegal dealings with the Hyksos thief were ever revealed. Everything is all right, Commander Ahmose. I allowed him the honor of helping me stand. I was informed of your visit to Avaris today, Lady Nefiri, Commander Ahmose said. It's a surprise inspection, Commander, I said. I don't want the Hyksos working inside the temple to feel special just because the clergy protects them. Also, I want to show my brother. I lowered my gaze to Hote, whose eyes were glued to a line of chain of Hyksos being dragged toward the desert. What? Hyksos tightened his shaking grip on my hand. What are they doing to them? Commander Ahmose glanced at the passing Hyksos in the chains. Right, this is your first time in Avaris. He eyed Hote, causing him to hide behind my leg. My brother was quite short for his age because of his illness. That, my boy, is your sister's fine work. No. I didn't want Hote to know about my work. I didn't want him to see me in Avaris at all. God, thanks for nothing, Aunt Meriti. Hote is still too young to understand what my work meant. He couldn't possibly comprehend the true vile nature hidden deep inside each and every Hyksos. He might think I was being a heartless monster for the sake of it. I wasn't. Why are those Hyksos being dragged away? I asked Commander Ahmose. Maybe if I played dumb, Hote would forget my involvement in Avaris' security. We caught an Egyptian traitor today, my lady. Those are the Hyksos who helped him, Commander Ahmose said. My heart froze. The traitor was in love with the Hyksos woman. I took the liberty of sending the man to the capital, Egypt's side, so the Grand Vizier can deal with him. Was my decision to your satisfaction, Lady Nefiri? As you know, Commander, Egyptians fall under my master jurisdiction, and the punishment for treason are well known. Oh, those punishments visited my nightmares each night. I dreamed that my secret dealings with the Hyksos thief had been discovered. Commander Ahmose dragged me to the desert, stripped me naked, strapped me to a boulder, and left me to die under the burning sun, while I cried out that I had broken the law to save my brother. Commander Ahmose lowered his eyes toward Hote, whose gaze was still glued to the Magi, as he beat the chained Hyksos. Ah, don't frown, my boy, he said. 300 years ago, you would have been the one chained, and the Hyksos would have been the ones beating you. You did this? Hote looked at me, ignoring the commander and pointing at the beating Hyksos. Well, it was more of a team effort. A system, really. Nonsense, Commander Ahmose laughed. Our Lady is being modest. We call her Passer Cobra because if any Hyksos fall into her grip, they don't escape their grim fate no matter what they do. She puts an unbreakable spiked leash around their necks of the untouchables. Hote hugged my leg and buried half his face in my white dress. Commander, I glared at the man. Would you? Oh, my boy, Commander Ahmose continued. The man's nationalistic pride was reaching to his peak. Great. You should see those lowlights when they beg her for mercy, but Lady Nefiri, like her master, will have none of it. She knows the Hyksos are all guilty, rotten to their core, and depending on the crime, she throws them in the dungeons or feeds them to lions, or let Hote keep his innocence. Commander, I said with a stern tone that shook the commander of the Magi out of his babbling state. Commander mostly cleared his throat. Of course, Lady Nefiri, of course. He eyed Hote. I'll teach you everything about your sister's work once you join the Magi. I don't want to join the Magi, Hote said. You will grow up and join the army then, the commander scoffed. We, Magi, do the real work, and you boys want to become soldiers. Hote released my dress and looked at the temple scarlet stairs beneath his feet. I won't grow up. Commander Mose hesitated. His face softened. I pushed Hote's head against my waist. He must have heard what the healer had told me yesterday, that Hote didn't have much time left. Lies! He would grow old. He would eat all the food the healers didn't allow him to eat. I would heal him, become Grand Vizier, and feed him apple cake with honey and dates every single day. He wouldn't die. It was my responsibility to prove the healers wrong, and the key to fulfilling my promise of keeping Hote alive lay with my contact inside the temple. I took Hote's hand. Keep up the good work, Commander. Will do, Lady Nefiri. Will do. Commander Amose bowed his head. Hote and I passed through the temple gates. The temple was guarded exclusively by the army, which meant there were no Magi here to tell my brother about my work. Thank the gods. Inside the temple's main hall, Hyksos priests and clerks bustled around, going about their business under the watchful eye of 8 Egyptian soldiers who monitored their every move. Giant murals depict Set's story. The god of destruction had a rich lore connected to him. He failed to kill his brother Osiris. Then his nephew, Horus, thwarted his attempts to usurp Egypt's throne. My master, Grand Vizier Passer, taught me that the shared streak of wickedness and failure explained the Hyksos' fascination with Set, and why his cult had fallen under his control. I sat halting on a bench near the entrance and knelt before him. I fished an apple out of my brown leather bag strapped around my chest and gave it to my brother. I want to go home, he said, rotating the apple in his tiny hands. Please, I have to talk with someone, and by the time you finish your apple, I'll be done and we'll go home. Holte didn't answer. Didn't even glance at the magnificent murals that decorated the temple's interior. I put my hand under his chin and raised his absent glare. I promise I won't be long. Will you throw me in the dungeons? Holte asked, his face growing pale. My heart skipped a beat. What? If I become bad like the Hyksos, will you let the lions eat me too? Oh, no, no! I hugged him, pressing his head against my breast. How could you think that? I, of all people, could ever hurt you. But you hurt the Hyksos. I don't hurt them. That technically wasn't a lie. My Magi were the ones who did the actual harming. But the Magi said the Magi were messing with you. I rubbed my tears before looking at my brother in his tired eyes. You truly believe I would hurt you? He shook his head. And you know I will do everything to protect you, right? He nodded. Then don't give me this talk about me hurting you or about you not growing up. But I heard the healer say, hey, you trust your big sister, right? He nodded. Then trust this promise. You will become an old man one day. I poked his nose. So old, in fact, you won't have enough teeth to eat your favorite cake. Finally, my little brother chuckled. Like Aunt Meriti. I smiled. Now, your apple while I finish my work. I won't be long. I stood and straightened my dress. Look at the murals and try to decipher their meanings. I will quiz you on the way home. He nodded and began munching on the apple, eyes scanning the temple's interior walls. I had been teaching him to read since no teacher would accept him, making the stupid excuse that he couldn't waste time and resources on a kid who wouldn't survive until next winter. Stupid teachers, he didn't need them. He needed anybody but me. I was going to teach him. I was going to heal him regardless of what everybody said. I made my way across the hall towards Sycthe, the clerk, the childhood friend of a thief who supplied me with Holte's medicine. I took a deep breath, tears from emerging. I couldn't cry here. This wasn't a place to show weakness. Here, I was Lady Nefiri Minu, the Grand Vizier's sole apprentice. I had to remain powerful and in control, otherwise I would lose my job and, by extension, access to my brother's medicine. I would gladly feed everybody in the town of Avert, no, the entire capital city of Paramesu, to the lions myself would have meant my brother's survival. I couldn't lose my apprenticeship. I couldn't let my brother die. I couldn't. The priests and the clerks, all Hyksos and under the clergy's protection, glanced at me as I crossed the main hall towards Sycthe. Egyptians stuck out whenever they entered the town of Avaris. On average, we were tan compared to the Hyksos, whose lighter complexion and colorful clothes separated them from us. Those differences were a handy detail for catching any untouchables who dared to cross into the capital's Egyptian side. I approached Sycthe's desk beside the rear gates and coughed to gain his attention, but he was too focused on a scroll. I stepped forward and stole a piece of the scroll's contents, a long list of names and ages of orphan Hyksos children whom the high priest of Set would send to live on the Egyptian side of Pyramidsu so they didn't die on the streets of Avaris. Something didn't make sense, though. Some names were either written twice with different age or rewritten in different variations, which could only mean that... Oh no. Are you manipulating official records? I slammed my hand on Sycthe's desk. The clerk jumped back and fell to the ground. Nefiri, I didn't hear you coming. The registration scrolls. You're manipulating them, aren't you? I can explain. It's not what it looks like. The color left Sycthe's face. When a shadow extended behind me onto the trembling Hyksos, I turned my head toward the Egyptian soldier, whose bronze spear was tilted at Sycthe, ready to strike. Is this Hyksos bothering you, Lady Nefiri? The soldier asked. Tears appeared in Sycthe's brown eyes. Why couldn't those Hyksos just follow the law? As a Grand Vizier's sole apprentice, I should punish him for his crime, but I couldn't. I needed the idiot and his thief of a friend for my brother's medicine, and they knew it. They received payment and protection from me in exchange for medicine. Stand down, I ordered the soldier. Was my order massive betrayal to my core beliefs of never letting a Hyksos go unpunished? Of course. Was I committing treason by rescuing a Hyksos who I caught forging official records? I don't know if nobody caught me. Are you sure? The soldier asked. I shot him an annoyed glance. Leave, and don't interrupt my work again, or you'll hear from the Grand Vizier. The soldier tapped his spear on the ground and returned to his post. His head bowed. Ah, the irony. So much authority, yet I couldn't afford new footwear. I sighed and snatched an ink feather from Sycthe's desk. Thank you, Sycthe said, returning to his feet. I survived the soldier on account of what you did. You're an idiot. I marked the scroll for apparent signs of manipulation. Gods, it was such an obvious forgery. It was as if he wanted to get caught. Nevertheless, you protected me from the temple. Must register every underage orphan in Avaris, I said before he could say something that might get us both killed. Protected him? A Hyksos? Of course not. He was just more useful to me alive. I didn't protect Sycthe because I cared about him. He could drop dead for all I cared. I was simply keeping my part of the deal to get Hote's medicine. And we'll actually stop here for today. This is an incredible read. I am greatly impressed by Amr Saleh's world building of ancient Egypt. I'm not very well versed in Egyptian antiquities period in the sense of the kingdom era, either the high kingdom, middle kingdom, and stuff like that. But this is truly an incredible story. The world building is amazing. It already feels like historical in the sense where it is, because it is during the time of Ramesses the Great, who was probably one of the greatest military pharaohs in Egyptian history. And for those who don't know about Ramesses the Great, I urge you all to go and check him out. Type his name up. He is a very fascinating individual. Now, with that being said, the story itself, it's a nice, slow pace in the sense that it builds up the world step by step, inch by inch. I really enjoy the author's description of the characters, the Magi, the Hyksos, the differentiation between Egyptians and the Hyksos, how the Hyksos wear bright-colored clothing on their clothes or tunics, the dyes they use. They're lighter in features than the Egyptians. It really does show the true history of Egypt at that time. Honestly, this is a fantastic read, and this easily is a 5 out of 5 for me. I love this book, and I'm going to continue reading it in my long book list of other books I still need to finish reading. So, With that, listeners, this concludes my official author review, or first impressions review, of Treasures of Egypt, The Spear and the Scythe by author Amr Saleh. And I hope you all have enjoyed this episode, and be on the lookout for those interviews coming out next month, and my newsletter detailing all the guests I will be featuring. Until next time, this has been the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill, signing out.